Hi, everybody. Robin here at Toadstool Tarot. Welcome back, or welcome if you're here for the first time. Let me double check my volume setting to make sure that I am being heard. Sound. I still can't figure out. My laptop has an input volume that resets very low unless I remember to push it all the way up. And I didn't do that, but it just did. So I don't know if that changed the volume for you all or not, but should be okay now. So I want to welcome Sandra, Spirit of Avalon. I haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you here. Red Wing, SCB, is that Dulcie, I think? Monique Jolie, welcome. Don't know you. Roots and Waves, Ange, hello. Early Ritual, Tom, hi. So, yeah, great to see everybody. So let's see what's going on. It's chilly here in New York today. Well, I'm waiting a little bit longer to see if anybody else shows up. Give you a little bit of an update on what's been going on. As some of you know, I'm recently involved with another person, which is a little strange to talk about. I mean, after so many decades alone, I'm partnered with somebody, and I don't know how to refer to this person, because at 72 to say we're boyfriends sounds a little weird. We're no longer boys and we're no longer friends. We're more than that. Anyway, I thought of all the names and tags that go along with that, like, partners, companions, lovers, spouse. We're not married. And I sort of, what ran through my head is Mary Wells' famous song, My Guy. And now that I've said it, it's probably an earworm. You know the song, My Guy. So I've been sort of referring to him as my guy. So that might be a little weird too, but anyway. So my guy and me, we made a plan to go to MoMA yesterday. I just wanted to tell you about this show that's there for anybody that's in New York that can see it. It's really intriguing. There is my guy and I are both from the same music and art circle back in the 1970s, and another person in the late 70s and early 80s, part of that circle of people, was an artist named Christian Marclay. Now, what he used to do is he did a lot of artwork involved with records and music and sound. Like, he would collage album covers together to make new images, and he would chop up old found records and sort of like kind of puzzle them together and use turntables to play these conglomerations of sounds, and did all kinds of strange manipulation. Anyway, I guess about a decade ago, he did this project called The Clock. And I don't know how many of you know about it, but it's currently on display at MoMA. And what it is it's a real life 24-hour clock, which is a digital representation of snippets from classic films and television shows, where he's basically taken like little video clips that feature clocks, wristwatches, mentions of time of the day, and so forth. And he has collaged them all together in real time. Think about that. It's really bizarre. It sort of has you approach your notion of what time is all about and kind of reassess it. And it's also fun because there are some actors who've done many films where time has occurred in their different films. So you'll see somebody like Jack Nicholson very young in one clip, and then in another he's 50, 60 years old. And it's very strange, this kind of juxtaposition of time going back and forth. Also, this thing is running at the museum 24 hours a day. Unfortunately, because of the museum hour restrictions, I think they only had one day or maybe a couple of instances where they kept the museum open so you could see the whole thing. So you really can only go to attend when they have museum hours. But anyway, we went yesterday at opening time, which is the best time to go because there's limited seating, and it's not like a movie where you go in at the beginning and then get up and leave after 2 hours. People just hang out until they're tired and leave. And if they have the stamina and bladder control, I guess they could stay there from museum opening till closing. But they have all these like couches in there, and you go in the dark, and you sit down, you start watching this thing. And you see, you never need to check your watch because all you need to do is look at the screen. It'll tell you in one clip or another what time it actually is. It's totally fascinating and very strange. And I think he has created 4 copies of these for various museums, and also it's been rotating and been to different museums around the world. So if it ever comes to a museum in your area, I recommend checking it out. It's really intriguing. So we stayed, I think, a couple of hours. I actually wanted, they didn't open till 10:30. And I particularly wanted to be there for 11:11 because I have this thing about repeating numbers. And some of you know about angel numbers, I guess they call them, where you have 222 on a clock or 333. I find that when I look at the clock, very often, more often than not, I will see a magic number on the clock, and I will make note of it. And I have gotten into the habit of reciting a mantra when that synchronicity occurs. So if it's 11:11 and I just happen to catch the clock at that time, I recite my private and personal mantra. And this sort of reinforces, like a charm, what manifestation I hope to achieve out of that. Anyway, I think it's like really interesting thing. So go check that out if it's available to you, or if you're anywhere near New York, definitely go check it out. So I just want to double check and see who else has popped in since I started my rant here about the clock. Also, it's very interesting because of our notions about time, and people have different concepts of time and philosophy about time. It's a man-made concept, and we pretty much let it rule our lives. It's just gives you an interesting perspective on things measured out in film and video clips in real time. One thing I do sort of wish is, because it's not a film that ends, there aren't credits. It would be nice in a way to be able to see credits that included all those clips and where they came from, because inevitably what happens when you're watching is you'll see a scene on the screen and you think, gee, I'd like to see the rest of that movie. I wonder what movie that's from. And unless you recognize the actor, if you recognize the actor, I guess you could sort of like search it out online and, through the IMDb, you find out all their film listings and maybe eventually you find it. They really need something. I don't know if there's a program like Shazam. Do you guys know about Shazam? It's a program where you can have it on your phone. You click on it, and if there's music playing, it will identify the artist and the title of the song that's playing, which is a great thing because often I'll be somewhere where there's some random soundtrack. And I think, oh, I like that song, but I wonder what it is or how would I find out? And a lot of times radio programs don't announce songs for half an hour or ever, and you don't know what the song is. So I use Shazam a lot. But anyway, a program like Shazam would be really helpful for this installation, the clock, to be able to know which snippet came from which film so I could go check it out. Actually, there was one clip that I liked. It was a Humphrey Bogart movie. I recognize him. And it's a little snippet where his wife is asleep in the bedroom. And there's a very sort of slovenly housekeeper pushing a vacuum cleaner and smoking a cigarette. And it was a really interesting little scene about, you shouldn't run the vacuum. You'll wake up my wife. Oh, she's out. She's took, one too many sleeping pills, whatever. But it was a kind of a funny clip. And I thought, gee, I've never seen that film. I would love to find out what it is so I can watch the whole thing. If any of you happen to know, slip it in the chat and I'll make a note of it. So let me just scroll back here. Madame Maru's House of Cards, welcome. Let's see. Tom has been meaning to get back over to MoMA. I don't know. Are you in the area? I don't know if you were somewhere around here. If you are, we should meet up sometime. Early Ritual. Oh, you live in New Jersey, right across from Manhattan. Okay. Simon's here. Welcome, Simon. Jane the Seeker. Welcome, Jane. Red Wing. If I didn't know, I did already say hello. Let me double check. I think I'm caught up. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, a couple things. First of all, I want to talk about the year change because we just finished 2024 and are now into 2025. And this is a whole topic we could really get into in depth. I'm going to go through my top 10 for 2024. And what I'm going to do, I'm not doing a new decks because unlike many of you watching, I don't buy a lot of decks. So I don't even have enough to make a top 10. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my top 10 most used in 2024. And I think what I'm going to do, if there's time, is I'm going to do a 3-card reading just generally with each of the decks. So I won't show you a lot of cards, but you'll see a little sampling from each deck and a practical sense of how they're used in readings. So, but first of all, what I want to touch on is this idea of 2024 and 2025. 2024, if you add up the numbers numerologically, would be a number 8, which is usually the strength card. However, sometimes, or maybe more traditionally, it's the justice card. So I might ask you, did you consider the year 2024 more of a strength year or more of a justice year? Now, we had issues in politics, I think, where we expected some degree of justice, and I'm not sure a lot of it felt like we got justice. So maybe it flipped over into strength, and maybe it was a year where we needed to find our strength to get through dealing with injustice. I don't know. But it also begs the question, we're in 2025 now, the Hermit year, And following that is the wheel. And then the year after that, 3 years now, ahead, 20, I'm losing track. 2026, is it? Is going to be, no, that's, whichever one adds up to 11. My math's all off. Whichever one adds up to 11 when we expect to be justice, is that going to be then finally a justice year, or is it going to be another strength year? I don't know. It may hinge on the year before, which would be a Wheel of Fortune year, and however we deal with the Wheel of Fortune. So let's just say we went through a year that was potentially a justice year, but we didn't find justice, and so we needed to find inner strength to deal with that. We're now going into a hermit year where we need to kind of look within and find within ourselves how to process those kind of feelings moving forward, and preparing ourselves for next year, which will be a Wheel of Fortune year where anything goes. We have no idea what's going to happen. And then we'll be able to, we'll have prepared ourselves to roll with it, so to speak, on the Wheel of Fortune. And then when the following year comes up, we'll know whether it's a justice year or a strength year. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have particular notions or opinions about that. I guess it probably depends on whether you're more of an RWS worker or a Marseille worker, because the Marseille system traditionally has strength at 11 and justice at 8. And RWS is the other way around. So anyway, I guess enough about that. But if you have Jane says it's another election year. That's which one is another election year? The justice year? Anyway, haven't done my year ahead card yet. You reminded me, says Simon. 2026 election. Thank you, Jane. Wait a minute. Is it though? 2026. That's the midterm, isn't it? Yeah. I'm confused. 2026 is a 10. Yes. So that's the Wheel of Fortune year. Okay. All right. Next year. Sorry. I'm thinking about 4 years. See, time is a strange, contradictory notion, and we can easily get caught up in the wheel. Okay, I'm going to go with my top 10. Now, I didn't particularly, I'm not strict about doing these in order. I'm going to try and go backwards from 10 to 1, but I don't know. I'm not that strict about it. Again, I'm saying these are the cards that I used the most in 2024. And they're across different systems. So the first one, or I should say number 10, we'll call it, is the Enchanted Lenormand by, what's her name? I don't have the box handy. Caitlin Matthews? Or Caitlin? I don't know how you pronounce her name. These are the backs. And I actually discovered this through Chris at Elemental Cartomancy when he first reviewed them. And I like them because they're sort of fairy tale-like images that kind of puzzle together really well in the way that the images are framed on the cards. They're also colonial kind of imagery, which is very well Simon says it's pronounced Kathleen. It's, it kind of drives me crazy though when these different spellings are pronounced different ways. I mean, I always read Caitlin as Caitlin, but Kathleen, okay, whatever. I guess all you really need to know is the name of the deck and how to find it if you want it. So it's the Enchanted Lenormand. So I'm going to do 3 cards, and often I don't pose a question because I find that sometimes when I pose a question, I get an answer relating to the question, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes the tarot will tell you what it wants you to know, regardless of what your question is. It's like, never mind that. Pay attention to this. So what I have here, I have 3 cards. The central card, I always put my focus on the central card, is the Rider, card number 1. And the Rider, generally speaking, is arriving news. So it's a little like the Fool card in a way. And I also love that all these cards appear inside crystal balls, and they have the playing card association on the card as well. They are glossy, which is it's a little unfortunate, I think, but it's okay. So we've got news arriving. The first card is the house or the cottage. I love a thatched cottage. Very old fairy tale like imagery and very British, I think. And I would love to live in a little cottage like that. So the house, house and home, where you live, where you're at, what your concerns are. Third card is the sun. Happy sun. Now, the sun in Lenormand is pretty similarly read to the sun in tarot. And you can read this like an oracle. So I would say, generally speaking, if we're doing a general reading around these 3 cards about what's going on in 2025 or coming ahead, is as we're riding into 2025 and we're receiving news on a daily basis, it comes into our homes, it affects our home life, and we will find ways to make the best of it. We will find ways to make a sunny day out of this. We will find ways to make happy times out of this. Hello, Nancy, Crohn's Intuition, and Aspasia Rising. Beth, welcome. So that is my number 10 choice, Enchanted Lenormand. Next, we're going to go to number 9, which for me, this has slipped way down on my list. This is the Maraloon, which I absolutely love. I still love it, but at one point it was number 1 on my list. And now it's fallen. And it's only because I really haven't used it much in the last year. Maybe only a couple of times. But it is one of the most beautiful backs decks I have. I love the back design. It's available at MPC, I think. If it's not at MPC, it's at, I think, Game Crafters. It was on both, but I'm not sure where it is now. You might have to Google it. And this is, for me, a hug deck. It's a comforting deck. I guess I found comfort elsewhere this past year because as I said, I haven't used it very much. Couple times, several times maybe. Okay. This deck is telling me central card is the Empress. The Empress I always see in a comfort zone. So regardless of what's going on in the world in 2025, she will seek her own level. She will find her own comfort zone. First card is the Fool. The Fool is walking into 2025 with an open mind and an open heart. Page of Swords is card number 3. So I would say that the energy of the Empress is surrounded by the Fool and the Page of Swords. Step into 2025 with an open mind. Be thoughtful and considerate in all things. But just like a page, a newcomer, and like the Fool coming into 2025, wielding a sword, be prepared for battle, but also be prepared to properly communicate, evaluating all the things that you've learned. Think before you speak. Think before you act as you go into 2025. It's going to be, I think, a challenging year. So it's best to know what you're talking about before you talk. Okay. That's my mini reading for the Mara Lune. Next, we're going to move on to number 8. Different system again. Third system in this countdown. This is the Tarot de Marseille, and I have with me the Maria Celia, Tarot de Maria Celia from Leonard Jim Narciso. It's a great little tarot in a tin, very affordable. You can find it everywhere. We had somebody new pop in. I see somebody welcoming Tony. I don't see. Did Antoinette pop in? No, I don't see Tony. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading that wrong. I need new glasses. It's Hey Tom, and I'm reading Hey Tony. Okay. 3 cards. Not bad. Not bad. Our central card, oh, these are the backs of the Tarot de Maria Celia. This is probably my current favorite Tarot de Marseille. Most consistently favorite, I'd say. This is the Pope. This is the center card. So we can always look to teachers and to leaders to guide us in terms of knowledge, in terms of the information given us. Going into 2025, I am mindful of the trouble we're in terms of news and politics. I would say the Pope says, be mindful of the news sources that you follow in 2025. Make sure that your sources are impartial and reliable. If you tend to get all your news from an online source, be cautious. If you tend to follow any particular channels that lean any particular direction, be cautious. I would say seek out a source for you that feels to be reliable and dependable and trustworthy. That's probably most important in navigating through 2025. If you have trouble with that, the Eight of Cups, you may be a little emotionally overwhelmed and with a tendency to kind of walk away from too many feelings. So definitely think about that. Think about being overwhelmed by your feelings, particularly with regards to taking in new information and where the sources are that information is coming from. The third card is the Four of Wands. I would say find times when you're overwhelmed to step away, be with friends, have some little celebration. Go out for a meal together, but don't talk about the problems. Be able to celebrate and step away from them. Question everything for its motive, especially now. Oh, welcome, Verdant Bliss. Okay, we're going to move on to the next deck. Number 7. Number 7, I called Ted's RWS. That's not the name of it. The name of it is not helpful. The name is RWS RL20V2, and it's sort of non-existent. It was privately created for me by a friend, Ted Veitch, and it's my personal favorite RWS deck. It's very close to the Centennial Edition, Smith-Waite Centennial Edition. It doesn't have a copyright on it, and the back design is orange. You cannot find this deck. So I'd say if you like this deck, maybe buy yourself a copy of the Centennial, because that's pretty close. Also, one of the, I can't remember whether it's the 1909, the A, B, C, or D. One of those is very close to this, but I can't remember which one. But I think probably the closest feeling is the Centennial, and that's the most affordable too. Oh, Tom says the Taschen release is similar coloring too. I've been tempted. I don't even know if that's still available, but I've been tempted to buy that. I don't know if I need the hefty price or all the information in the book, but I'm always looking for the perfect RWS. And for the last, 5 years or so, this has been the perfect one for me. And but I'd be curious to compare it to the Taschen release. I did order the Pam A, I think, and I like this better than the Pam A. Okay. So what we have in our 3-card spread for this deck, our center card is the world, where each of us is at the center of our own world. And as we go into a new year, we are stepping out into the world, whatever it may be. first card is the King of Pentacles, where we feel like maybe we've got everything under control. All our material ducks are aligned in a row. The third card is the Emperor, which I always look at this as the card of stubbornness. We tend to get stuck in our ways. We tend to get used to certain things. I think this is a pretty good mirror for the King of Pentacles, actually. We like our material possessions set up around us just the way we like them. We work with them every day. We like routine. And that feels very Emperor to me on his stone throne, not wanting to move or budge. But the World is kind of an opposite sort of card, like stripping that off and dancing naked into the new year. I think this is something that we need to think about. How stuck are we in the patterns that we've picked up from 2024 and years previous? And how able are we to open up to new possibilities and changes? Gonna move on. We're down to deck number 6. And this is a really unusual one. Where the heck did it go? Oh, there it is. I found this at Make Playing Cards, and it was an impulse purchase. It was on a whim during sort of Halloween season. And I like this deck a lot, but I don't recommend it necessarily to anybody. It is AI influenced, and the images are not necessarily intuitive readers. It's kind of a funny deck, even though it's also a scary and confrontational deck. I would say if you're a fan of dark comedy, but also the artwork of Vincent van Gogh, you might like this deck, because a lot of the imagery, there are a lot of ginger-haired, bearded men in this deck who look like spit images of Vincent van Gogh. This deck is called the Haunted Terror RWS. No. RWS? RW? I can't remember. I think it's the Haunted Terror Rider-Waite, I think. Yeah, because has nothing to do with Pamela Coleman Smith, but it is supposed to follow that tradition. So this is the back of the card, kind of colorful, almost carnivalesque. Oh, no. This I find interesting when I pull cards from different decks, if we get repeaters. This one, the central card, again, the central card is the Hierophant. This Hierophant, even though I can use this deck and I like using this deck, I don't generally lean into the imagery of this deck. I find it amusing, but it's not generally leading me intuitively. So the Hierophant, this kind of plays back into that notion. If I do read the imagery from this card, it plays back into what I said before about, can you trust your leaders? Can you trust where you're getting your information from? Does where your information is coming from send you into complete panic? This happened to me in 2024, and my best approach was to reel back my viewing habits, not spend as much time on the news channels. There are 24-hour news channels, and they rerun the same stuff over and over. You can tune in for 30 seconds and get the headlines that are the most important, and then switch the channel, turn it off. That's all you need. So I would say in this reading of 3 cards, from the Haunted Terror Rider-Waite. Be wary of your Hierophant, of your information sources. The first card was the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man, I would say, suspend action. Maybe not stop altogether, but be wary of how you proceed. Don't proceed in a state of panic. It's better if you stop, if you pause to think about what you're doing before you take action. So actually, I am leaning a little bit into the panicked imagery in these cards. Card number 3 is the Ten of Wands. That's a little bit more like Van Gogh. This is not bearded. We didn't get a Van Gogh card in this spread. But a little bit, Ten of Wands is often feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work that needs to be done. And when we need to recorrect our course, it often feels like there's too many things that need to be done to change course. And so this, to me, feels like a warning that there's work to do, but don't let yourself be overwhelmed or panic by the amount of work to do in 2025. So there we go. That is deck number 6. I think I might run a little bit long today, but that's okay. We're gonna go down now to deck number 5. Deck number 5 is kind of a cross between a Rider-Waite Sith system and the Marseille. And that is the Oldfellow Tarot, revised from the Japanese Keishobu Tarot, which was based on both systems. And I can't remember the name of the artist. I appreciate that she revised this and revived it and reissued it. She did several versions. She did an updated version one. She did a kind of an traditional one that looks a little antique-y. That's the one I have. You can find it on Make Play. I seem to have a ghost. One of my plastic bottles fell out of my recycling bag, or jumped out, or was pushed out. You can find it at makeplayingcards.com. It's called the Oldfellow Tarot. And the deck I have, the version I have, is bridge size, which I like. It's a linen stock. These are the backs. The first card is the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands asks us to consider the steps we want to take moving forward. This really kind of this plays into the previous reading a little bit. Like, before we move forward into 2025, we need to consider the information that we're given and make careful and thoughtful decisions before we take steps forward. The first card in the 3 is the Four of Pentacles, or Four of Coins, which is, again, maybe this sort of stubborn emperor kind of notion of holding on too tightly to our beliefs about things, our material situation. We want things to stay the same, and that will keep us from moving forward. So we need to reassess our relationship to that before we go ahead. Card number 3, perfect card for this year, the Hermit. And also the perfect card for inner contemplation. So as we think about our steps moving forward, we think about what we're holding on to the past too tightly. We need to consider what we can let go, what we're able to free in order to move forward. I'm liking this deck. I may need to order this. I recommend it, Tom. It's quite wonderful. And this particular one I referred to, I never called it the Keishobu. I used to call it the deck of the blondes because it was a Japanese deck, but every character in it is a Caucasian blonde in the original version, and that's the one that I have. So check out the ones you want online because she has updated some that have a couple different cards and different colorations to clothing and skin tones and so forth that are more representative of contemporary society. I actually prefer the way it was originally released. And this is a little bit aged looking, a little sort of ivory. The one I have an original copy of the Keishobu, and it's a very stark white card and border. But I kind of like this better. I didn't at first, but it's easier kind of in ivory tones. Now, I haven't had any guests on here in a while. I would like to do that once again. Since I've been doing these Saturdays, I haven't been doing that. But I invite anybody that's interested in being a guest and having a on-screen dialogue with me, please get in touch. You can find my email in the information on my channel. I think a community page or whatever it's called. Sandra has it. I know Simon has it. They have different versions, I think, than the one I do. Okay. We're down to deck number 4. Okay, this deck I did buy in 2024. It's the Zodiac Tarot. Another deck in a tin, affordable. It follows RWS. Again, glossy cards, which depend on how you feel about glossy cards. Might not like that. Also, depending on how you feel about the Zodiac, I don't really generally follow astrology or the Zodiac. I don't know much about it. Sometimes the little bit I know I can layer in or add on to a reading. But I bought it more for the imagery and the fact that this is both a bright and a dark deck. The backgrounds are nighttime or black images. The foreground is pop, bright daytime colors, and I like the mixture. Oh, hello, Elspeth. Welcome for joining us. Welcome to joining us. So this deck I have used. And let's see what it says about our transition into this new year. Okay. Central card is the 6 of Pentacles. Oh, these are the backs. And these do have, many of them have constellations or stars in them, and they do have a zodiac sign in the corner, if that is something that means something to you. So we have the 6 of Pentacles, which is, I call it the sharing card. Sharing is something that's going to be important in 2025. When we get to be too clutchy and too tight to material things, or too tight with our opinions that we've formed. We need to keep open minds. We need to be generous in sharing with other people, both of material gifts, of our time, of our thoughts and ideas, of our compassion. We need to find ways in 2025, in difficult times, to be able to share of ourselves and share both in the joys and the grief of the things that we are going through, that we experience. Simon's asking me if I've explored the Ehrenberg yet. Itching to hear your thoughts. Simon, that's probably going to be next Saturday. I'm probably going to do a walkthrough next Saturday. But I am as itching to hear your walkthrough or reactions to the manuscript of Initiations as you are of my Ehrenberg tarot that you gifted me. So we'll get to it. So, as I say, share of yourself, share of your material goods, share of your opinions, share of your compassion. Card number 1, the Hanged Man, another repeater. We had the Hanged Man earlier in a spread. So it's, suspend immediate action. Carefully think about how you share. You might come across with opinions that are too stuck in that old opinionated mode and not open to sharing with others. So take time, again, time to think before you speak, before you share. Card number 3, another repeater, the Empress. So the Empress, we have that level of comfort. Maybe this is saying when we go to share with others, we need to be compassionate and comforting in the way we share. If this proves to be a difficult year, there will be people very sensitive, very nerves on edge. I can't speak properly today. People that need comfort and compassion. Find a way to communicate and share with them that takes that into account. Always comfort. Always try to comfort people. Be the Empress when you share. And only after you've taken the time to think about what you're going to share before you share. There you go. Weaved all 3 of those cards in. Deck number 3. Almost finished. Deck number 3. I almost hate to keep promoting this because as much as I love it, it's unavailable. But again, it has been expressed to me that it will become available this spring. Again, they will reissue this deck, the Between Worlds Oracular Cards and Guidebook. Now, there's another deck out there called Between the Worlds. Do not be confused. This is not that deck. And there is, I don't believe, a credit specifically for the creator of this deck. Again, it is an AI-assisted deck. It's created by a graphic artist who generated 3,500 images and then worked his way down to select specific images for this deck. It has a number of different suits and it's a different system. I don't follow the system necessarily. The guidebook is quite wonderful. It's very helpful. Between Worlds. It's the only Oracle deck I believe I used all year. I'm not an Oracle deck person. It's also bird oriented, and I'm not a bird person. but it has beautiful cardstock, shuffles really well, has beautiful imagery, a beautiful palette, and most importantly for me in an oracle deck, the text, the words are very carefully chosen. And I found it to be a very reliable and helpful oracle deck for me. I've often used it to supplement my tarot readings. You can check back on some of my previous lives where I did readings and I followed my 3-card tarot spread with the 3-card oracle reading from Between Worlds. So let's see what we get here. I like this. I like this. I don't like that so much. All right. Central card. Central importance in the coming year. Humility. Humility. We don't want to step into the new year heavy-handed. We're with a heavy boot. Again, it's that sensitivity about the information that we gather from our Hierophant, from our sources, our knowledge sources. We need to figure out how we're going to use this information compassionately, share it lovingly with others. We need humility. We need to be humble. I think a lot of us have lost that humble nature. As tarot readers, we get to a certain degree of knowledge and we tend to think we know it all, and we never do. There's always more to learn. So remain humble going into the new year. Along with humility, I think, comes grace and gratitude. Remain thankful each and every day for everything that comes your way and your ability to manifest and process that. And that feeds into this card, card number 1, embodiment. Embodiment. Think about embodying the notion of humility, embracing humility. Third card, I'm not so comfortable with, the Destroyer. Now, this sounds like a negative card, the Destroyer. I'm going to look at it from a positive point of view in terms of change. If we want to destroy things that are destructive in the new year, that's a weird way to look at it, but let's say we want to make change, but the things we want to make change over are destroyers in of themselves. We want to destroy the destroyer. We need to find a humble way and embody that humility in order to share the things, share the love, share the compassion, share the things that will break or destroy the destroyer. Does that sound convoluted? I think you know what I mean. Still plays into that idea of compassion as we move forward. Oh, I don't think I showed you the backs of those cards. It's a beautiful deck, beautiful colors, and very much caught up in the world of birds and the whole idea of being born through the creation of an egg and the eggshell cracking and then breaking out of the egg and then maturing and growing feathers and finding flight. And it's a very interesting deck. Now we're down to the last 2. And I had them in a different order, but I'm going to switch them around. You guys probably ready to bail out by now. And you will have seen these probably too many times on my channel over the last year. My deck, which would have been number one, I have just in the last couple days decided to switch to deck number two. And that is my personal deck, the Open Face Tarot, which you can find at makeplayingcards.com, and which I house in one of these handy little vinyl boxes that you can also buy a la carte there. It fits perfectly with my little Lenormand, which I'm kind of not counting as a number two, but since they're housed together and I work with them together, I'm considering them a single product. If Jane's still here, I know she works with both of them almost as one deck. So the Open Face Tarot, as you know, is very close to me. It's the first deck that I created. It's a majors only deck. Keep using that term, even though I don't like majors only. I also don't like calling them a Trump deck. You know, what do you call them? But it is the major arcana without the rest. Beth says, off topic, but that shirt suits you so well and looks fab. Loving the yoga monastic Hierophant look of it. This actually it has a little bit of a pointy shoulder in it. This is belonged to my mother, and I don't know if it's reading on this camera in this light. It's purple actually, but it's like a polar fleece, and it's comfortable and connects me with my mom. So that's a good thing. Maybe that's the Empress element asserting itself today. Hello, nothing so strange. So I'm going to pull the three cards. Now, generally speaking, these days, when I use my Open Face, I pull three on an upper level from Open Face and three on a lower level from Lenormand, which basically takes the place of the minors. So my central card for the Open Face in this reading, deck number two, is the High Priestess. The High Priestess, it's funny, the High Priestess in the position of where we found the Hierophant a couple times before. This is intriguing. We'd also had the Hermit in third place a couple times. I think this may be, while gathering our information and considering our sources, we might also follow or lean more into our intuition. So it's like balance or gauge the stuff we get from our Hierophant sources with our internal High Priestess intuitional impulses. If you follow that. Yeah, when you get your news sources, consider how they feel, if they feel right or not. Maybe pause, like the Hangman. Think a minute, go inside, intuit how that feels. If you work with guides, consult your guides. Does this feel right? Does it ring true? First card is the Lovers. I just heard my phone ding, and I think it might be my guy. So it's funny that I got a Lovers card just now, but synchronicities happen all the time. The Lovers isn't necessarily about romantic relationships. It's about partnerships of a sort. Hello, Rolf. Welcome. And partnerships can be with other people. They can also be partnering with your higher self and your earthly bound self. That may relate to this notion of the High Priestess and intuition and consulting or partnering with your intuition in terms of that information that you need moving into 2025. Third card is the Star. The Star is inspirational guidance. What inspires you? What will give you guidance in terms of moving into 2025? I think it has to do with that partnership with your intuition, that partnership with your guides, your inner Jiminy Cricket, whatever, whatever helps guide you on a right path. Now, I'm looking to the lower level, which is the Lenormand. In the first card, we have mountains. The mountains can be a barrier. It can be a long way to go. It can be difficulties to get where you need to go. We have been going through times that are difficult to get to a place of comfort and goodness. And second card is the Clover. A little bit of luck. With a little bit of luck, we'll get there. Card number 3, the Garden. The garden is gathering of flowers like us, a gathering of friends, communal gathering, whether it be in person or online. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Throw in a few weeds. Throw in a few people that aren't like-minded. Open yourself up to finding out what they're all about, where they're coming from, understanding them. Plays back into that thing about being compassionate in terms of dealing with others, in terms of maneuvering, navigating our way through the garden of 2025. Okay, we're down to deck number 1, my deck of the year. Well, you probably saw this coming. I'm sure Simon could see this coming because I already mentioned it a few minutes ago. That is the Manuscript of Initiations. This was a deck that I liked so much when I found it on Etsy, and it was at a sale price, that I bought 4 copies. I bought one, I gifted to Simon. I held on to it for almost a year before I finally was able to gift it to him. And I have 2 more copies as backups here. And I don't generally buy backups, but there's something about this deck. I have used this deck every day for the last year. I also have used the Open Face along with it, but yeah, this is a deck that I have become very close to. And it's a very strange and unusual and sometimes difficult deck, particularly for other people. It's not the easiest to see all the imagery. It's not the easiest to follow intuitively. It's kind of a pip deck. It's sprinkled with marginalia, which are images that were depicted in the borders of ancient manuscripts. It's imagery that's culled from many different sources of ancient manuscripts, both Christian and Muslim and, various things. It's very much like a Hieronymus Bosch kind of a tarot. A lot of the creatures in it are mythological or mixed creatures with heads of humans and bodies of other animals, or vice versa. And I often don't use the imagery in it. I generally use the rank and suit and label of the card to do the reading, and only tend to layer my readings with the imagery when they jump out at me. Beautiful, beautiful. This is like another in my Beautiful Backs series. This is actually the third edition, and these backs are different from the earlier editions. Card number 1, we have the Four of Cups. A beautiful woman in a garden with a basket to gather bounty. The Four of Cups. Now, the way I read with this deck, I tend to default in my mind's eye to the images from the RWS because it's something I'm very familiar with, and it makes PIP deck reading very easy for me. I don't go generally with numerology, although sometimes that's a layer I add in. So Four of Cups is usually something overlooked, something left behind, something we're not paying attention to. Let's be wary of 2025 and be aware of everything that comes into the picture. There is a rabbit here dancing into the scene, playing a pipe. He may be on the periphery, but take note of that. Take notes of all those things on the periphery of your existence. They always tend to come into your life in some way or another. They manifest, maybe too subtle to pay attention to, but pay attention to those things. Card number 1, again, the High Priestess. Very pretty High Priestess. Very peaceful. 2 swans. Interesting figure coming out of a shell. Will you come out of your shell in 2025 to investigate new growth patterns? See, these can be intuitively read. Seek out information that's a little bit more obscure. Read more articles. Maybe depend more on newsprint or magazines than online media or television media. But again, it's the High Priestess, so follow your intuition in terms of that information. This is a hell of a card to end on, let me tell you. This deck has 2 extra cards in it. Not fond of this card, and I rarely know how to read it properly. It's added into the major arcana. It would be card number 23, and it's called Plague. Now, this is a very difficult card to find a positive spin on, other than to know we will get through. We will survive. Like Gloria Gaynor, I will survive. So if we follow our intuition, if we pay attention to what surrounds us, we will survive any aspect we perceive of as the coming plague. Okay? Think of the plague by flipping it around. I don't do reversals, but think of it in terms of survival rather than succumbing to a plague. And it's again a kind of a lesson in strength. You know, like I said, we're going from strength into the hermit year, but we need, it seems like all of these readings have to do with gathering our resources from reliable sources, gathering our strength, going inward, going into solitary position, considering things carefully before speaking, before moving forward, before taking steps. Make certain you know what you're doing and it's based on proper information. So yeah, we're not leaving that with the plague on the mind. We're thinking about all the strength that we have, and we're going to embrace our hermit to evaluate, and we will know how to navigate 2025. So I'm going to leave you all on that note, and thank you so much for joining me and for sticking around today. It's an hour. It's a 1:20, so we've been here an hour and 20. That's longer than I've been doing lately. I usually go only an hour, but I think this worked out well. I think that it was interesting, maybe, to get a sampling of these various decks, and I mean, all of them have been walked through on my channel. If you want to look back, you can find images from all of the decks, but you can see how they can be used practically by my doing little readings with you and focusing on the year we've just been through and the year ahead. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you. I am grateful for you. Let me express my gratitude. I feel humble to be in your presence. I feel humble to be able to continue studying, investigating tarot, and sharing whatever I can. See you next time. Bye.